in charge of giving assurance and providing advisory in terms of all the processes within KenGen. And my background is basically I'm an accountant by training, having trained at University of Nairobi, both my undergraduate and MBA. I'm also a certified information systems auditor and a certified internal auditor and quality assessor. I have over 20 years working experience, drawing from both public and private sector. And of course, I lead a team of around 20 professionals within KenGen just to ensure systems are working properly to guarantee reliable power supply from the state corporation called KenGen. So allow me then to take you through mastering organizational dynamics. And of course, to me, is a soft subject, sometimes quite forgotten, but not taking care of the dynamics within the organizations might make or break you. And for the internal auditors in the room, and I'm one of them, I'll also just want you to relate this topic to standard number 11.1. That standard is on building relationships and communicating with the stakeholders. That's where I'll pitch this particular topic to the standards. That is the global internal audit standards, which require the internal auditors to develop an approach for the internal audit function to build relationships and trust with key stakeholders. Okay, that's very important. And it goes on to say that the chief audit executive must promote formal and informal communications between internal audit function and stakeholders. So when you look at this topic, please align yourself with the informal communications, because that is where sometimes some of these factors come in. So that is the outline of what I'll try and cover within the time given. Is 16 past 8. We look at definition of organizational dynamics and what are its elements. Why does it exist? And of course, I'll give you some examples of some of those dynamics in our institutions. Then I'll narrow to a topic quite often ignored in the institution, but sometimes weighs a lot. That's organizational politics. And of course, then we'll delve just slightly into ways we can manage those politics while still ensuring you are delivering value, but of course doing this professionally. Then I'll crown it with some 12 steps that you can deploy to master organizational dynamics. Then I'll pick some comments, including question and answers. And we hope that that will carry us for today. So as I commence, I just want to say that organizational dynamics, as we define it, is the pattern of behavior, relationships, power, communication, culture, and decision-making that shape how people interact and how work actually gets done within our institutions. So just look at it as those lived realities of the workplace. That is the human system behind the formal structures that we have within our institutions, and it includes both visible and invisible forces that shape daily life at work. So there might be some invisible forces that works within the institutions. They are very important, and you cannot ignore them. And of course, as you think about these dynamics, they do exist because our institutions are made of people, not machines. And when you look at this, that's why we still try and stress that we have all this artificial intelligence, which some people fear that they'll replace human beings. But we still believe that people bring in personalities, they bring emotions, they bring fears to work, which you cannot ignore. Then in every grouping within our institutions, naturally, they form some power structures, be it formal or informal, and of course, they will influence. And of course, you only ignore them at your own risk. Of course, different goals and interests also create tensions. We have departments, teams, individuals competing for attention, resources, and recognition. And sometimes in the process of these competitions, certain interests emerge, which bring in some tensions within the institutions. But of course, with any institutions, they are always deemed to be possible changes, which brings uncertainty. Any new systems, any new leadership, any new policies obviously reshape our relationships and behaviors. And of course, we have the big animal called culture, which also evolves over time. And of course, we know what culture can do over a period of time. And you ignore organizational culture, establish norms and beliefs at your own risk. So as you think about organizational dynamics, think about power structures, be it formal or informal. We have the so-called hierarchies and titles. You dare not ignore them, also in the public sector. Then, of course, we have the informal structures, the influencers, the people who influence things to happen within our institutions. Those networks, you don't ignore them at any point in time. Then think of the communication flows, who talks to whom, how information travels, what gets shared and who doesn't. There are certain informations within our institutions shared by particular people. So you don't ignore such people. Most of some of us internal auditors, we know such type of people within the institutions. Before they give an okay, no information will come out for you necessary for you to undertake audit. Then we have the culture and norms. These are basically the unwritten rules about behavior, how we do things here. And of course, there are certain expectations within those norms and culture. And we even have subcultures influencing what happens within our institutions. Then, of course, a big animal, that is politics and influence. Basically, we have competing interests, alliances, negotiations, hidden agendas. And this sometimes you will clearly see when you are doing activities like recruitment. You dare not ignore politics and the influence behind it. Then we have motivations and behaviors as part of the organizational dynamics. What drives people to do certain things? We have fears, we have ambitions, job security, and even incentives. Then we have the decision-making patterns, how decisions truly get made, often different from policies. Yes, we have our policies and procedures within our institutions, but sometimes the decision-making structure ignores those policies and procedures or overrides them, or you find a hidden hand in terms of some of the decisions made not aligned to policies as we know them. Then we have conflicts and collaborations, basically how departments relate to one another. Some compete, while others try and avoid each other at all cost. Okay? So it's very critical that you think around this, and I'll narrow down to some 4 components of organizational dynamics. Of course, we begin with the people dynamics, that we have different personalities, different skills. We have interpersonal relationships. Then we have a scale I really want to really focus on, and that is emotional intelligence, because they shape how people behave within the institutions. Then we have the power dynamics, wherein politics come in, and we have the formal power, and we have the informal power. And you dare not ignore them, because they determine who gets heard, whose ideas move forward, who control resources, and then who sets direction. Then we have the culture dynamics, basically the way we do things here. You can't ignore the shared norms, the beliefs, the traditions, which behaviors get rewarded or get punished. And of course, we know culture drives people to make decisions. Then we have the structural dynamics, basically the established organograms, the reporting processes, the policies and procedures and workflows. So as you think about those dynamics, we do know that these dynamics determine how decisions are made, who influences what within our institutions, how conflict emerge, how teams work together, how change is received, how power is exercised, and how work is actually done beyond the formal policies and procedures we know within our institutions. Now, just to put it into perspective, and I believe you will quickly align with these examples of dynamics within our institutions. In our institutions, and mine is not exempted from this, but we have the shadow leader. You won't see him within the organizational chart, but he wields a lot of influence because basically you will find the CEO trusting them. These people have a lot of historical knowledge. And of course, most people often go to them. If you pass through them and get your proposals approved, basically you are done with the procedure. So you dare not ignore the shadow leaders. They are not within the organizational structure, but they wield a lot of power. And I believe some of us who read a lot of politics could relate to the current politics we have. We have people who are not within the government system, but they wield a lot of power. And if given time, we can be able to name them. Then we have teams which ignore policies until they see if the leader enforces them. So basically, they sit back and wait. And once the leader endorses them, then they are willing to follow through. Again, policies are circulated, but nothing changes until the employees observe whether the managers actually follow the policy, whether violators are punished, and whether leadership is serious. So again, this is what we call cultural signaling in action. We basically do what our boss tells us. Then we have situations where decisions are made before the meeting. The meeting is just for a show. And we have seen this where it's as if people met elsewhere. When you walk into the room, you realize that certain positions have been taken and you are the only visitor in the house. So again, this is basically political realignment in action, and you dare not ignore them. Then we have also situations where a high performer is overlooked because they are not visible. Despite strong results, they receive average performance rating because they don't socialize, they don't promote their work. And above all, they don't have a sponsor or what we call godfather. Then this is what we call social capital shaping careers. Then we still proceed with the example. One toxic high performer dictates team behavior. This is very serious. Where a star performer, we know a star performer will bring revenue, he has technical expertise, he is protected by management, but their negative behavior is tolerated so that we either adjust, so that we avoid conflict, that you stay silent. This is what we call culture being shaped by tolerated behavior. Then we have departments which hold information to maintain power, and of course we know them. There are those excuses that we are still verifying the data. You don't need to have that level of detail, and perhaps they tell you that let's summarize it first. This is what we call information politics, and of course they are basically trying to control access to information until certain alignments are in place. Then we have leaders who support a change publicly, but then undermine it privately, and this is common in the boardroom. I sit in the executive committee, and of course, sometimes we see such kind of tendencies where a director verbally endorses a new system, but secretly he is working basically to sabotage the same system that he supports publicly. Of course, again, we call this covert resistance, and the list can continue, and you will be able to see more of them when you receive the slides. So again, as you think around these organizational dynamics, allow me then to narrow down to one, which revolves around organizational politics. And again, as I said earlier, ignore politics at your own cost. They drive a lot of things within our institutions. But before we go deeper, it is good to appreciate what it is by definition. We say is the use of power, influence, relationships, and informal strategies to achieve goals, either personal or organizational, outside the official rules and structure. So in simple terms, they are the behind the scenes behavior people use to influence decisions, control resources, advance interests, or protect themselves. So as you think about politics, we have
Sipeudi, I think we lost you.
For that, I think I've lost power here. CPA, you can hear me, Dot?
Yes, now I can hear you. We lost you for a bit.
Sorry for that. I think allow me to reshare my presentation. Okay. Sorry for that, and very unfortunate. This is a person who is generating power, and somebody thinks that it's only fair that my power system goes off at this. Anyway, we will revisit why somebody is trying to do what he's doing.
Okay.
Okay, just allow me to reshare the slide again, and just confirm that you can still see the slides.
Yes, we can see it.
We are okay?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, thank you. And sorry for that, team. So we were saying that politics, it has three facets that we can have the positive element, where basically the politics within the institution influences constructively, and of course helps build alliances, and of course then there is negotiation for resources. That is the positive element. We have the neutral politics, basically for managing relationships and seeking information. And then we have the extreme side of it, the negative, where we basically use the politics, or the politics is being used to manipulate, undermine, or pursue self-interest at others' expenses, which is sometimes not very nice for the institution. And as we progress, then we say that organizational politics are not always toxic. They are a natural part of how human beings get things done in groups. And of course, as professionals logged in here, we should not engage in manipulative politics, but we must understand and navigate politics so that we become effective, respected, and of course, we become impactful. We also recognize that we operate in an environment where decision, resources, influence, and priorities are shaped by human dynamics, not just policies, as we know within our institution. So that for us to provide any meaningful assurance and insight as professionals, we must understand these dynamics instead of pretending that they don't exist. If you work more so within the public sector and pretend that politics doesn't exist, it might consume you if you don't watch out. So then we turn into what are some of the ways we can manage politics as professionals within our institutions, and allow me to take you through a few of them. One of them, and I'm speaking as an auditor, that you really need to maintain your independence and objectivity. If you ride on those two principles, where basically objectivity, I'm looking at the unbiased mental attitude that you put into your work, that you are objective in what you are doing. Nobody influences you in terms of what you do. And then, of course, independence is basically trying to, of course, separate yourself from the process and ensuring that people look at you as somebody you can be relied upon. So basically, we say that you avoid taking sides, also in internal conflicts. You stay clear of departmental rivalries. Let not yourself be drawn into some of the wars that departments might be having. As a professional, try and really stay clear of the same. Then a big one is basically, as you make your conclusions, be it in an audit report, strictly it must be based on evidence. Then, of course, documentation is very critical, so that, again, you document all assessments clearly. Then you keep personal opinions out of your audit report, because sometimes we get carried away and we find ourselves bringing in our own biases into some of these final products that we bring on board. Another strategy is build professional relationship without becoming political. which sometimes can be a tall order, but we are basically saying that relationship building, and as I started earlier, I alluded to standard 11.1, where building relationship has really been emphasized in the global internal audit standard. So one of those stakeholders is senior leadership. We have the middle managers, the process owners, and of course, try as much as possible to identify some of the informal structures. We have them. We have the gatekeepers. Try and know them, and of course, ensure that you build relationship with them as much as you are building relationship with the formal structure. And of course, we are basically again cautioning that avoid gossip circles, because those are what ruin our professional relationship. When you find yourself or your name being highlighted in a gossip circle, and they exist within our institutions, then of course we have alliances which exclude any other person. Again, try and run away from those alliances which are not inclusive. Then of course we also have the faction-based relationships, where basically certain relationships are formed to espouse certain agendas which might not be very good alignment for professionals. But the big rule we are saying is be friendly with everyone, align with no one. I believe that looks quite direct, that you are not aligned with anyone, so that we know that sometimes some of the political networks, they exist for a season. And if you work in an institution and try and align yourself with certain fellows and ignore others, you tend to suffer when perhaps the leadership in the institution changes and you find yourself being associated with the leadership that exited. You will not want to be in that position. So try always to be friendly with everyone while maintaining your professionalism. But of course, don't align yourself with anyone. But of course, try and ensure you build relationships which are mutual and of course supports the mission of the institution. I'm also proposing that you read the power dynamics before engaging. Of course, you are basically trying to avoid landmines so that you know which shoes to step on, because landmines sometimes can be very, very destructive. And of course, you do that by asking yourself who stands to gain or lose most of from any assignment you are doing, who has informal influence over decisions. Remember the informal aspect. We have the formal influence, but there might be the informal influencers within our institution. So you need to identify them. Who controls critical information even as you undertake your work? And what is the history behind the issue that you have raised? So that again, as you navigate your reporting, you are then able to know exactly where you are coming from. You end up not reporting. You don't want to end up reporting something which then backfires, more so to the extent that there is a very big history behind it. Then, of course, communication is very critical. And of course, not just communicating, but with diplomacy and precision. We are basically saying be clear, factual, and balanced in your communication. Avoid blame game or emotional language in your report. And of course, we are also saying use evidence-based findings. Frame findings in terms of risk and impact, not people. Avoid mentioning people's name in any communication. Most audit reports that avoid alluding to people and instead focus on processes and what risks were inherent in those processes and impact. Then of very critical importance, most so when you have critical findings, validate the facts. Just ensure that the evidence you have can support your conclusions as you do the communication. I'm also proposing that you focus on problem solving, not fault finding. As you put in your thoughts in an audit report or any report for that matter, we must shift from what went wrong to how can we reduce the risk, how can we strengthen controls, how can we improve the governance, risk management and control processes, because this tends to reduce resistance and positions you as a partner, not a threat. When you start focusing on what went wrong instead of looking at improvements, people start viewing you as a threat, more so within the institutions, more so to the extent that you are an independent observer or an auditor. And again, then you don't want to look like you are a fault finder, you are a policeman. Then, of course, we also say that as you undertake your processes, stay transparent about your processes. That basically means bring out in your communications the scope, what you covered and what you didn't cover in your review. The criteria you use must be well laid out so that people can judge your finding against the criteria. Evidence, we can't overemphasize the issue of the word evidence, because we do say that if you become so transparent in your communications, it then weakens any political attempts to discredit your work or your review or audit for that matter. We're also saying that when politics is high voltage, sometimes what you documented will salvage you. We do say that documentation is your political pushback or your political insurance. So that again, as you do your work, just ensure you document those emails, very critical. And if you believe that somebody might tamper with them, try and archive them elsewhere, maybe in your Gmail account, so that again, in case things become very, very difficult, you can unleash them, so that again, people then come to notice actually where you are coming from. Then, of course, as you do all this, don't forget to use your soft skills to de-escalate tension. Quite often, the tension between also internal audit, because I'm talking to you as an internal auditor. Internal audit and senior management, sometimes tension can escalate to a level where then you really have to look for ways of retreating. And this is where your emotional intelligence techniques come in, your self-awareness and being aware of others' position. And of course, you tend to deploy active listening, which quite often sometimes we run away from. We don't listen. And of course, the other party then becomes very aggressive. Perhaps you need to bring in empathy even as you communicate, be in their shoes and try and pick issues from their position, even as you write your audit report. Neutral language will be very critical. Avoid issues like fraud, where also you are not doing any fraud investigation, but when we read in between the lines, you are alluding like the audit client could have committed a fraud. And then, of course, respect for others' pressures. We know that people are chasing targets, and sometimes as you do your audit, please try and give that breather, so that again, we don't look like we are very insensitive. And of course, we do say that if you can practice or deploy your soft skills, even politically sensitive stakeholders will feel that they have been heard and they are not being attacked. Then, of course, as you do all of this, also try and manage up smartly. That basically means your relationship with the senior management is very critical. Be very sure what you are escalating upwards. And of course, you don't want surprises. You don't want surprises when you are doing any engagement. You'll want to ensure that you are walking along with your audit clients, for that matter, so that again, everything that we are going to report finally doesn't come to them as a surprise. And of course, again, we are colleagues. I will want to emphasize the last point there, that you seek guidance when navigating sensitive politics. Sometimes there are a lot of politics, and it might find your way in some of the communications we do. If you feel that the issues look very weighty, you might want to consult a few colleagues here and there, and it does come in handy. Before then, you throw in that report before the top management or the audit committee, whom quite often we deal with, or the board for that matter. You'll want to ensure just that you are not burning bridges as you communicate upwards, okay? Then avoid being used for political agendas. That is basically to settle scores. Quite often within our institutions, internal audit is often used to settle scores. And of course, you will be pressured to put your findings in a certain way so that we deal with some of our enemies within. Remember, you are not an enemy, you are in between, and so long as you maintain your objectivity, you should be able to come through this. And of course, you can basically stick to our risk-based planning, which is advocated by the standards, that you are basically following the risk and nothing else, nothing like people's opinions driving audit agendas. Refusing to become a weapon of mass destruction through your audit report, escalating inappropriate pressure. Sometimes when things are too thick, I believe it's only fair that you push it or we put it in the best doorstep. Then keeping work, and of course, we are talking of evidence-driven because we do say that your neutrality in terms of the fighting or fielding departments is your strongest defense. Then provide recommendations that respect organizational realities, because sometimes as we put our recommendations, we sometimes fail to put them within the context so that we ignore things like culture, power structures, feasibility, business priorities. Sometimes you really need to look at things like power structures. Yes, a report has been done, and sometimes, yes, we have the senior most person, we have the middle manager. Sometimes you'll want to navigate to what level do you want that report to escalate. And of course, some of the issues you'll also want to find a way of even discussing them before even documenting them, so that by the time you document them, already you have prepared the other party on the other end in terms of what to expect. So we basically say that your recommendation should be effective and politically realistic. Then confidentiality is a virtue we cannot underestimate, and for the internal auditors, it is one of the pillars which we are required to conform with under ethics and professionalism domain, that if you betray the confidentiality which the audit clients or stakeholders have given you, it really destroys the trust, and then it invites political misuse. They'll start questioning what is your motive in revealing this information to an authorized person. So basically, we do recommend that you protect very sensitive information at all costs, more so interview scales, preliminary findings, and of course, concerns which have been raised anonymously. More so if you are running a whistleblower system, those concerns must be protected. And when we say the best way then to deal with the anonymous reporting, in ensure that if you have such a framework for reporting anonymously, then outsource it to a third party. That one will protect you from any leakage happening. Then, of course, build a reputation for fairness and competence. We can't run away from building our reputation based on fairness and competence. And of course, we are saying that develop a brand as someone who is objective, someone who is of high integrity. You are competent, you are prepared, and of course, you are consistent in your reporting, so that again, you report objectively across the departments, not that some departments you come out very strongly while others you tend to run away. We also say that you should handle pushback with professional calm. Of course, sometimes you might be pushed so much, but as I said earlier, emotional intelligence should come into play so that you don't overreact. Sometimes you can receive a very annoying email from the stakeholders. We do say that take a breather, don't even respond immediately, but take your time before you respond to emails where you can clearly see that there is a pushback from the other end. You might want to take your time so that emotions can cool down. So, but of course, as you try and respond, of course, again, professionally, respond with facts, and of course, ensure that you still have your criteria very clear. And of course, also watch your language so that, again, you don't respond with equal force with which the email came. Then very critical and very, very critical, escalate only when necessary, but don't hesitate when required. That is a very cardinal principle you can deploy, that sometimes, yes, we are quick to report, But as you report up higher the ladder, even all the way to the audit committee and the board, please try and ensure that you have exhausted the laid down mechanism of reporting. There is a person whom you are auditing his processes, and you'll want to just ensure that you are aligned with him and ensure that even as you escalate the issues, you don't again then spoil the good working relationships you have had with your colleague. So there might be categorization of issues to report. There are issues you will want to report. There are issues which you will want just to explain in an exit meeting, and that's the end of them. And of course, you will have noted them in your exit meeting. That means they might not find their way in the final audit report. So again, then you will also want issues where then things, sometimes things are so bad, more so things or instances where we believe management is accepting risk which are beyond the risk appetite of the institution. So you'll want to ensure things around illegalities. We are breaking the law, we are evading taxes, we are not complying, we are damaging the environment. Those are issues you will not want, because sometimes you might fail to escalate, but then they come back and consume you. So basically, we do say that escalate when there is undue influence. There's a lot of pressure for you to drop some issues. You will want then to be for you to be guided accordingly by the people higher up the rank in terms of your reporting lines. Where scope limitations arise, you are being prevented, either no documents are being given, you'll want to escalate. Where ethics or non-compliance issues surfaces, these are issues bordering on your integrity, and you will not want your integrity to be compromised. Or where significant risk exposure has been ignored, you have raised an issue, but the way it is being handled is exposing the institution. And remember, when the institution goes down, we go down with it altogether. We also say that you should sharpen your political intelligence. And of course, as an auditor, having been in the public sector for very long, you'll also want to gather your information. And we define political intelligence as the ability to understand and navigate power, influence, and motivations without manipulations. And we do say that you need to observe the informal networks, because sometimes they can also be a very good source of information in terms of how to navigate yourself. They also give you feedback. Then study also who influences whom and why within the institution. Understand stakeholders' interest, and of course it begins by mapping the stakeholders, both internal and external. What is of interest to them, and how can you meet what expect of them? Then, of course, learn politically smart, learn from politically smart but ethical leaders. Again, we still have ethical leaders within us. Sometimes it's good to seek mentors, and they can be able to assist you. Then a very big one, and I'll put it in red, that choose your battles wisely. Choose your battles wisely. And I've seen this one being deployed of late, where I've seen certain chief executive officers of certain institutions within the Republic opting not to take the institutions to court, more so after evaluating what will be the impact. And I believe that they could be deploying this strategy of choosing their battles wisely. You can try and imagine you are trying to battle the government of Kenya in a court of law. Yes, you might win temporarily at the court of law, but your trouble might just extend beyond that place. So that's why basically we are saying not every issue is worth a fight. Sometimes give in. I believe you will have done your work. You will have escalated what you need to escalate, but don't take it behind that, because then you might escalate to the audit committee or the board. Then you think that those people have not taken action. So you start thinking of other alternatives, which sometimes might not work for us. So again, ask yourself those questions. Does this matter to the mission, or it is just my ego? So sometimes you swallow your ego and of course progress on. You live to fight another day. Then what are the consequences of staying quiet? If I remain quiet, what will happen to me? Despite having done your work, you have reported to the channels you have been given. Then again, sometimes you also just try and look at it is this the right time to raise those issues? So sometimes you also want to just look at the timing, so that again, your timing doesn't coincide with certain other activities happening within the institutions, which then even accelerates the political temperatures within the institution. So we do say that save your energy for battles that matter. Not every issue is worth a fight. So again, understand your organization's culture deeply. Culture, I think, yes, those are unwritten rules, how people behave. And of course, as you study all those, because then sometimes we ignore culture, but from it, you get to learn 80% of how people behave within the institutions. So don't ignore those norms, rules. They are not written somewhere, how people behave, how people speak, how decisions are made, because they really determine how then you survive within an institution. Then sometimes we do say, become comfortable with ambiguity. Sometimes you might want to try and streamline a lot of things, but sometimes in those uncertainties, it might find that it is the way of life within some of our institutions. So that we do say that sometimes accept that not all decisions are rational. Some decisions look irrational, but all the same, you will find that the institutions don't find any problem with them. Then you need to adapt quickly to shifting priorities so that you quickly get to know where are people moving from, where is the leadership moving for, or the thought leaders, the influencers, where are they putting their focus, okay? Because we do say that ambiguity is where true leadership sometimes emerges. In this ambiguity, we do find then to do some root cause analysis, and of course then table some solution. So as I move towards the end, I want to leave you with some 12 steps, which we might want to just explore, even as we try and deal with this animal called organizational dynamics. And of course, self-awareness is quite critical for the first time. We do say understand yourself first, know your strength, blind spots, and impact your behavior has on others. So if you know yourself, then you know how then to navigate or how to relate with others. And of course, then practice emotional intelligence, respond with calm, empathy, and awareness, not impulse or ego. Then, of course, as we read earlier, you must be able to read the power landscape, recognize who influences decisions formally and informally, and of course, build relationship with all these networks so that, again, you know how to navigate yourself within the hierarchies. Then build authentic relationships, cultivate trust across teams, not alliances or cliques. You must really run away from cliques, because sometimes cliques, they do die within a certain leadership. And after that, another clique comes in. So try and not align yourself with such cliques or alliances. Then communicate with clarity and diplomacy. I think we saw this earlier. It is a very critical step that you shape your messages thoughtfully, choosing the right tone, the right language, timing, and audience, so that you know who you are talking to, at what time. Does he need to get that message, or that message is meant for other cadres? Then learn to influence without authority, basically move ideas forward using logic, credibility, and connection, and not position. Sometimes you will want to use other ways, not your title, to pass on information or bring in ideas, which sometimes people find acceptable. But when you wade off or you flash your position or title, sometimes it works against us and you find a lot of resistance. Then understand the culture beneath the rules, so that we are saying observe unwritten norms and behavior patterns, what people do, not what policies say, because I think most of us have seen the disconnect between the policies and what basically practically happens. It is important that you don't ignore some of those unwritten norms or unwritten policies, if you may want to call them. Then you must learn to manage conflicts constructively, address issues early, fairly, and privately. Never let resentment ferment, so that, again, As issues come out, there might be ways you might address them diplomatically, privately with the people concerned without amplifying. We do say that praise in public, but chastise privately, so that again, if somebody makes a mistake, then approach him privately. But when he makes or he achieves something, praise him publicly. I believe that principle applies here. Then adapt to change with maturity. Basically, we are saying change is inevitable in our institutions. So be flexible, be curious just to know why certain things are being done, and then try and maintain an open mind as the institution evolves. Don't stick to your practices and procedures, even though things are changing. You might find yourself in a very uncomfortable position where you have been singled out as one of the troublesome people, and some people might contemplate pulling you out of the institution. Then maintain integrity and boundaries. Basically, stand firm in your ethics, ensuring that you are morally upright in terms of what you are doing while navigating the politics, and never compromise on your credibility, because sometimes that might be the only thing left for you. Your integrity might carry you along to the next phase of your life. Then keep learning continuously. Of course, we believe that some of these things you might not be able to pick them within the institutions, but we believe if you study a bit of leadership, psychology, communications, it might help you to sharpen up. I'm trying to imagine when I was told about this particular topic, it made me into reading, and by now I've picked a lot in terms of dealing with the dynamics within the institutions. And of course, we are aspiring for higher positions. You might find the same dynamics. You are serving as a board member. Now in the boardroom, some of these things will still apply very keenly. So try and learn as much as possible, because learning never stops. But as you do all of this, the last step you will want to think of as you deal with the dynamics is protect your well-being. Basically, sustain your mental and emotional health so you can think clearly and respond wisely. You can imagine where you are mentally tortured or emotionally drained, and you still have to deal with the politics around. So basically, we are saying work-life balance is critical here, so that you are in a mental state every day to deal with issues as they come. So as I pen off, or my parting shot as we come out of this, is that mastering organizational dynamics is not a one-time achievement, okay? It is an ongoing discipline of observing people, understanding power, navigating culture, and adapting to constant change. It requires continuous learning, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and willingness to adjust your approach as the environment and its players evolve, just as we have seen a good number of them. So that organizational dynamic shift from new leaders, new priorities, new pressures, new personalities. So your ability to read the situation, build relationships, and respond ethically must evolve too, because things are not constant. We must evolve ourselves. So that I'm saying to truly master the organizational dynamics, I'm saying one must stay curious, so that again, try and find out why certain things are being done certain way. You will get to learn a lot, and I've learned this over the 20 years I've been in the public sector. Then stay aware. Of course, self-awareness is very critical, so that at any one point in time, you are basically, it helps you then to know how to respond. Then stay adaptable, so that when things change, you don't find yourself grounded in the old ways of doing things, but you adapt so that the new dispensation or the new leadership within the institutions, you're able to cope. Otherwise, you might find yourself being left behind, or totally, of course, then being thrown out of the institution to the extent that you have refused to move with the change. Then as we still repeat, and we will continue repeating, that stay grounded in integrity, maintain your independence and objectivity, because it might be the only last thing left for you when all things fail. So we are saying the organizational dynamics is not something you master once, and we still repeat, it's not a one-time achievement. It is something you practice every day, because we do say that practice makes perfect. Allow me to pause there. And of course, thank you very much. I hope I've managed to demystify a few things around the dynamics, a few things about politics. But again, sometimes things get very tough for us. And feel free to reach out to your colleagues. We have been there longer, and of course, we can help you jot one or two areas which you can use to navigate the politics. Because sometimes it can become so much, it becomes so detrimental to our mental well-being. And sometimes people decide to resign and sit at home. But sometimes resigning is not the solution. I believe we need to face our fears head on. So that again, we need to provide for our families, we need to better our careers, and resigning is not a solution when faced with the politics within our institutions or some of those dynamics that are highlighted. So we need to face these things head on, be aware of them, be aware of yourselves, what you can do, what you cannot do, know your limits, know when to escalate. But I still repeat, choose your battles what? Wisely. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, CPA Audi. I have learned a lot personally, and I'm sure everybody has also learned a lot. And like you say, dynamics migrate from when you're doing the work to when you're at the board level. And from my own experience, those dynamics are still there. And the reason, like you said, is because we are dealing with human beings. And when we're dealing with human beings, we all have different personalities, different perspectives, different upbringing. So with the tips you've given us today, it will help us to know what route to take depending on the situation that you're in. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. And there are a few questions. There's a question I've seen on chat. We can, if you want, you can unmute and ask live. But there's a question on the chat, and the question being asked is, and this is from Naisola Juliet, and she's asking that we've said that we escalate only when necessary. But what's your advice on a case where the ODT or head of department doesn't provide management response, despite various reminders, and when and how should such an issue be escalated and to whom? So Audi, you can take that as we pick others.
Okay, thank you. That is Naisola. Naisola, thank you for that question. And of course, I'll tie this question with what the standard says, and also communicating management acceptance of risk. That you are doing an audit, you come across an issue, you have flagged it out, it doesn't meet the criteria against which you are auditing. And of course, then you believe there is a gap there. And of course, you have identified the cause. So you have crafted a corrective action, which we call recommendation. And here you are, the audit client on the other side is not giving you the action you're going to take. I believe if you read the spirit of the standard, is becoming very clear that management action plan is becoming optional going forward, because we're also saying that if you are doing a very good audit, and of course the standard is also trying to remind us that as you determine the cause, that is the gap between the condition and the criteria, that root cause must be discussed with the audit client in this particular situation. And once you determine the root cause and you agree on it, then it means, again, it's only fair that the recommendation or corrective action will involve the two of us, so that, again, going forward, some of us are adopting an approach of agreed recommendation. So agreed recommendation, that means we crafted it, that we are in agreement that we have determined the cause, we are in agreement that we have determined the corrective action. So we are putting the agreed recommendation, and we only need to identify who is responsible and by which date. So that, again, if the audit client doesn't give you response as you know it, I believe as an auditor, and I've used this before, you have done your work, please document your findings, more so where you have gone through the cadres of reporting from the person whom you are dealing with to his supervisor, all the way up to if all those doesn't work, you are moving all the way to the accounting officer, whom again, if nothing comes from there, you are free to move to the audit committee. So basically, we have been given that avenue so that again, as you escalate, then you will be proving that one, you have done everything possible within your purview to reach out to people who are responsible, but no feedback is coming, so that you are taking those particular action. I believe if you go that path, nobody will blame you for escalating issues which we could have discussed and resolved at our level. So that again, I believe then you are covered there. But again, as you have said there, they don't provide management action plan. By the way, your work basically ends at the recommendation. The work of getting management action plan or giving responses is left to the management, and you are free to state that in the report that despite concerted effort, and you can adduce evidence of what you did, nothing came forth, so that arbitration then escalates to the next level, which is definitely the audit committee. So me, I'll suggest you go that way, but please seriously consider the agreed corrective action as a new approach of dealing with the management responses not coming forth, so that again, it's very clear that there is a recommendation which was agreed on and signed off. So there should be no problem in terms of you doing your audit. But where we are headed to with the standard, we are being told action plans are becoming optional. So you do your work, those can be captured elsewhere. You have reported, you have highlighted the risk, and of course, it's up to management then to close the gap. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, CPA. I hope Juliet, the answer is good enough. Great. She says she's happy with the response. So other than the question, there are so many accolades to be Audi saying thank you for your candid presentation of the topic and sharing your knowledge. So we still have a bit of time because we usually end at 9:30 to give time for feedback questions. So if you would like, you can unmute and make a comment, or you can chat in the question you can put your question in the chat. Okay. We will also share the presentation to your emails after the session, and we'll keep the conversation going.
Sure.
Okay. You can go to the last slide, Eric. So I have also shared shared the last one with your contact, which I've also shared in chat. Yeah, this one. So as we wait for anybody with a burning question or a burning discussion, you can reach CPA Audi on the
Maybe I can make a comment, CPA?
As it's not your part to the question. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. I think you have said we still have some 17 minutes to go.
Yeah.
I think maybe just to inform the team, we run a WhatsApp group for heads of internal audit within the Republic, and we do register as many people as possible. So one of the things we try and do within that particular forum is to deal with these animals here, organizational dynamics, most of the politics. And perhaps I'll give just one example of how we deflated one in recent times, where an auditor found the accounting officer pushing him to the wall. And of course, he did tell us that enough is enough. And he consulted me as the admin that is looking for a template of the resignation letter, because the politics in the institution is too much. And of course, the CEO is not supportive, and he feels frustrated. So for him, the last option left for him is to tender his resignation, which, by the way, we have all those templates. If you want to resign, we assist you to draft one. Of course, but again, before you do that, we try and also want to see what you have written. So we gave him, he shared with me, and of course I consulted a few colleagues in the group, mostly senior people, and he had said he's resigning before the end of the day because he really woke up that day, that morning, very, very worried. And of course, he reached out even before 8. So we gave him, but told him that before you hand over that resignation, please share with us. We read it, it made sense. We did a few of the edits. But by the time then we were handing back the letter to him to resign, it happened that because of the relationships we have within the group, some of them knew the CEO very well. Some of them are very good friends. And one of them happened even to be a relative. So we used those avenues to reach out to the accounting officer just to get to hear from his side. But to our surprise, the CEO appeared not to be very, very aware. He didn't know. He was not even aware that things have reached that level, that a colleague, of course, we did guarantee anonymity to this staff in terms of our discussion with the CEO. And of course, then, as we were just saying that this staff has really been contemplating doing things which are not very nice. We didn't say which ones. So in the end, we reached out to the CEO. We explained to him what needs to happen. And of course, we did manage to pull out the resignation letter. And as we speak here, my colleague is doing his work. In fact, it is the CEO who left after the term expired, and our colleague is still giving assurance in terms of what he needed to do. So for me, I just want to encourage the team that don't hang up your boots. I believe reach out to colleagues, build relationships, because you never know where those relationships can take you. So for me, for the colleagues who are here, that WhatsApp is for heads of internal audit. We discuss professional issues. We hold each other's hand. And of course, we also advise you how to choose your battles wisely before you run to court or take those unspecified actions, or running to EACC or all those bodies that we know of, because sometimes they don't, they might not assist us. You have a career maybe beyond that institution, and what we also need to watch out is that you are still able to move from one point to another without losing your integrity, your credibility, and above all, your brand. So I just want to encourage the teams logged in that don't give up. Otherwise, there is a term in the standard called professional courage. Professional courage. We are saying that internal audit is not for the faint-hearted. So sometimes you have to tell it as it is, even if it means leaving your head on the chopping board. It sometimes call for that. So professional courage is basically that, reporting things as they are, even if it means sometimes you getting fired or being murdered, or your head being brought at your doorstep, all those kind of things. So watch out on that, but above all, reach out to colleagues. I believe there is a lot there that you can share in terms of what others have done in similar situations, so that you don't get frustrated. If you resign, you will be giving them, you will be making them bold in terms of they'll be taking that we have managed to pull a Woody out of Kenyan. So you don't resign, but manage the situation so that again you take care of the other side, get to listen to them, because sometimes you have a life to live, and if you resign, perhaps getting another position might be very tough. So I wanted to share that. Thank you, Dot.
As always, it's amazing. So, in short, Audi, the name is a big camp, and he's given his contacts there, and he's told you he gives support to fellow internal auditors, especially in the public sector. So his contacts are there. You can reach out to him, and I can attest that CP Audi is very helpful, and As you can see, even from his notes, from his description, and all of you are making such positive comments about his presentation, about how powerful it is, about how insightful it is. Actually, if you take the notes from CP Audi's session and just sit down and go through them, you will really gather and learn a lot. So thank you so much for volunteering and offering this information on our platform, CP Audi. And please reach out to him. He is always willing and very helpful, I must say. So if we don't have any other questions, there's no harm in finishing early. So I'll just take you through again as we summarize, as we close, about what we do. And the knowledge sharing sessions, this is our 11th one, so we'll do the last one in December, early in December before we go for holiday. We do these sessions, we have these sessions on X-Space where we just have a general discourse and share knowledge, being the professionals, being the ones that have gone to school and know the standards and know how these things should be done. So we come together on X Spaces to just share the knowledge with the public so that we, all of us, as we educate, as we ask for these things that we need, as we look for improvement points, as we try to do our work and uphold public interest, we do it from an informed perspective. And so we offer these platforms as Dorte&Associates for people to just, share knowledge, discuss, learn from each other, and of course, pass the baton to the younger generations. We really like to deal with students and bring them on board, mentor them, and handhold them so that we have a continuum of professionals doing the right thing in the right places. And this is how we build our nation. This is how we build professional ways of doing things in organizations. This is how we get better. And if about 56, 55 of us who joined in today, we keep sharing the knowledge, learning together, and passing it forward. This is how we make our organizations and, in the end, our country great. We also do these webinars every month, and you please reach out to us if you'd like to facilitate a session. If you have a session that you're very passionate about, we'll give you the opportunity to share your knowledge, share your experience, and in the process, we learn from each other. I'd like to give a shout out to people joining all the way from England, from Zimbabwe, thank you very much for joining us. And we also appreciate that you're continuously sharing with us your knowledge. And of course, all of us from here in Kenya. We have a lot to do. We have a lot to give to the profession and to the country and to each other. As we always say, we are transiting. So in this current phase of ours, where we have the knowledge, where we have the information, I believe the best way to do it is to share it, to give it out, because you cannot go anywhere with it, and yet we have it. So it's good to put it inside platforms so people can learn from each other. We also do the coffee dates, which are physical events for networking, where we don't do it in an update way. We just come together. We bring leaders in the professions. We bring students. We bring professionals that are, climbing the career ladder, and we create a platform where people have coffee and chat with each other and learn from each other. And it's a wonderful encounter. And 2 years now we've done this in the major cities, and from next year we'll start structuring it so that it adds more value to us. But we've done all of this, and it has created wonderful outcomes, especially for students who've gotten sponsorships. Some have gotten opportunities at work, others have gotten internships. So we are doing a great thing by just coming in this platform and bringing yourself, the little you have, to share, to give it out to people that are with you. So from the questions, yes, we'll share the note through the emails that you registered with. And finally, we have our final event for the year. That's a major get-together networking dinner. We'll be having it on at Weston Hotel on Friday the 5th. That is next week, Friday. Please look out for our webinar. Look out for a flyer which has all the information. I'll be sharing it here as well. Please come and join us. Come and network with professionals from across the fields. A majority of us will be accountants, internal auditors, but there'll be other professions, and we always come together and discuss and have great conversations and share and network and just have a good time. Our theme for the dinner is cowboy. So if you have a bandana, a cowboy hat, if you have boots, if you have denim, something that makes you, relax and enjoy the moment, please don it and come and join us on that Friday the 5th from 6 p.m. at Western Hotel. Reach us at the contact details that are on the screen. You can inbox, write to us, reach out to us for any support we need. Like we said, we do core outsourced internal audit services, we do EQAs, we capacity build, and our goal is to just make our country great, our organizations great, our auditors great, our professionals to learn and benefit from each other. So In the next 6 minutes, I just want to give it back to CP Audi. Please pat your shot and tell us what is the one thing that you must not forget when dealing with organizational politics, when being great professionals and being patriots that love both country and each other. Over to you, Audi, for your parting shot.
Thank you, CPA. And I think my parting shot is still in one of my slides, there's one which is red there, which is basically choosing your battles wisely. And of course,
you can take us back to that slide. Sorry. You can go back to that slide.
Okay.
As you speak, so people can remember it.
Yeah, it is. But of course, there are two there. I'll not want to you must also gather your intelligence, but of course, ethically, so that again, you also know what's happening. And of course, I'll really challenge auditors and professionals. Of course, most of my internal auditors who do say that they are independent, and you miss an opportunity because sometimes independent is taken too far. You have very, very strategic gatherings within our institutions. Those cocktails, like the one CPA Dorte is rallying us on 5th, you fail to attend them, and people in there, some of them are influencers. They wield power. So for me, it's basically be at the right time at the right place at the right time, so that you don't miss this intelligence. Don't hide behind independence, not to attend these very, very strategic gatherings. And of course, you pick one or two, and you also deflate some of the what we do say in terms of some conflicts can only be settled in informal sessions. So think around it, but above all, choose your battles wisely. As we said, yes, we are auditors, we do audits, we write reports, but if you have your political intelligence right, they might tell you what to do with the report. It's not do or die with those audit reports. I believe you have done your issues. I've seen auditors trying to, because he did an audit report and it was not acted upon, or he doesn't see action being done, there is some urge to try and see if that report can reach out either to a blogger, for that matter, which might just worsen your situation. So me, I'm saying that do your work. Internal audit reports are internal audit reports. You have done it, you have signed off, you have your evidence, you believe your objective, you can defend it. So sit back and relax and enjoy. It's not do or die. So that's why I'm saying, and not every issue is worth a fight. Sometimes hang up your gloves and enjoy the profession. You like doing internal auditing, do your audits. But then when it comes to battles, there are battles you can fight, and there are battles which you better keep off, not even be seen within the vicinity. So basically, that is my parting shot. Thank you.
Great. So I think personally, I'll remember those points as well, and they'll come in very handy. So thank you, CP Audi, for offering your time. And a lot of the delegates are giving really good reviews of your information, how you've delivered it. So I feel appreciated. And you've summed up for them, including survival tactics, according to Peterson, Kisala. So Emma, Elizabeth, Peterson, Mary, Nancy, thank you very much for the comments. CP Audi, receive your flowers. We cannot thank you enough for the great work you do for the profession. We'll keep doing this. So, but today we have come to the end of our session. Please look out for our next session. Come join us at the dinner and have a good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.